Stonefield Query for GoldMine. This is the interface that your customers would see. It's easy to utilize. It's a tree structure that hosts your reports. There's tabs on the right which hold different bits of information and shortcuts that you can utilize. We'll touch on the Output tab later when we look at how you can output reports to files. There's different types of reports in Stonefield Query. We have quick reports, cross-tab reports, labels, charts, and external reports. Quick reports are typically going to be your row column style reports where you want to go and you want to get details. You want to look at the history and you want to see what's typed into the notes in the reference. You're looking at your forecasted sales. You want to see the stage that they're in. You want to see any notes that are put in the forecasts in your opportunities. Cross-tab reports, these are designed to be your hard and fast row column reports where it's much like a pivot table where you can take a look at the data and find out, how many calls out has Jason made, how many calls in has Jason made, how many outstanding forecasted sales are there, and so on and so forth. And it's just going to give you the totals. They'll say, Jason, he's got 25 calls out, 24 of this, 24 of that, and it'll show your next sales rep, Mike. And Mike will have X, Y, and Z for his calls in, calls out, emails, and such. In version 4.0, which will be due out here in the next couple months, you're going to be able to take a cross-tab report and export that into a pivot table for the Excel gurus that love to move things around and do some in-depth further analysis with that data set. That is coming here with version 4.0. Labels. Labels are perfect for targeted marketing campaigns. Labels are perfect for just something you need to send out that's individual. You don't necessarily have to print off a whole slew of labels. Even Christmas cards. We get a lot of calls in November and December. People want to send out Christmas cards or cards to their top 10 customers or something like that. We support all Avery label formats, and with Stonefield Query, you remove the issues of the labels not printing all on one label. I've used GoldMine for about 7 years now myself, and had one of those label printers that plugged in, and it started out working great for a year or so, and then all of a sudden the label started misprinting due to either different piece of software that was installed or a different driver or something, and you don't have that with Stonefield Query. Now, charts and graphs. You can make professional bar charts, pie charts, line charts, series charts, all with a few clicks of the button. External reports, where this fits in, most of you probably have worked with your customers. You may have created reports for your customers in Crystal Reports. And one thing that kind of goes by the wayside is that oftentimes customers think that if I have Crystal Reports, I don't need Stonefield Query. If I have Stonefield Query, I don't need Crystal Reports. Well, what we recognize at Stonefield Software is that both of those solutions can coexist because both of the solutions can do different things. With those solutions coexisting, you may have reports or reports that you've already created in Crystal Reports. You can now import these files right through the external report. You give the report a name, the folder you want to put it in the comments. When you click Finish, it's going to end up here in the tree structure wherever you've placed that report. Now, the customer still needs the Crystal runtime to be able to run that report, but your customer gains two things right out of the gate. The first thing they gain is the capability of changing the filter. In Stonefield Query, reducing your data set through filters and exclusions is easy, and that's something that they gain. And the second thing is that your customer would be able to schedule that report. So those are two significant things that your customer gains without having to upgrade to a different version of Crystal, all while saving all the time, effort, and money that has been spent on those reports, and then implementing Stonefield Query to continue creating reports. So it's basically leveraging that technology that your customer already has. Now, in creating a quick report, what I'll do is just step through the creation process of a quick report. And then what we'll do is we'll take a look at some of the other reports that I've already created to give you an idea of how Stonefield Query creates the other types of reports. So here we'll just do, this one I'll do forecasted sales. Now here I can grab any information I want. I'm going to grab just my contact from the main table. You can see that you have access to all areas of GoldMine right from your calendar to your case information, all the way down to your opportunity information, as well as QuoteWorks. So I mean, any of your customers that have QuoteWorks, they could immediately begin pulling reports with Stonefield Query from QuoteWorks. One thing I can assure you on is that the report writer in QuoteWorks is great, and it can get the information that it needs, but it's not easy to use. Being that I worked for QuoteWorks for a few years, I have experience writing some of those reports, where Stonefield Query will make that process easier for your customers. Now, with forecasted sales, I can just hit on forecasted sales is my table. So everything's in the terminology that customers are used to seeing. Maybe I grab the fields I want to grab. I'll grab my activity description, my activity code, my amount. I'll scroll down here. I'll grab my username and say my sale date, and my probability. So now I have a bunch of fields. I just have a small data set here with GoldMine with the demo. With yourselves and your customers, you probably have a lot of contacts and information in GoldMine, so you're going to be more apt to want to put a filter on right from the beginning. What I wanted to do is just show you how Stonefield Query formats the data. By no means does the customer have to stick with this sort of format, but this shows you what it looks like. Now, at this point, this is where a lot of folks make the biggest mistake when it comes to reporting. Most folks look at this and say, I don't like the way this looks, and you start getting off into and going into things like the advanced layout designer to start moving fields around to make it look the way that they want to. It's actually what I would say is a big mistake. What you should do first is verify you have all the information. Now, we know that you're not always going to be able to do that, and oftentimes you're going to get into the advanced designer, and you're going to have to add fields and formulas there, which you can do. But a lot of the easy things can be done right through step 2, and they carry right into the advanced designer. So things like seeing each one of your sales reps. You want to change this to sales rep. I could change that right in the wizard. Auto-fitting columns. Now, you can also put fields on the report that maybe you want to use for sorting reasons, but you don't want to display in the report. I just uncheck that. I can change my left, right, and centering. I can use default fonts and dynamic expressions for colors. Groupings, I'm going to group via my user. Linkings, email fields, and the website URL fields. You can force those to be linked when you're previewing the report. You can also do actions. Actions are finding the record in GoldMine or Google Maps, and you can also have what we call the drill down reports. Now, fields like your amount, maybe I actually want my amount at the end. I can drag that down, easy. Maybe I want to call this total. I can do that. Now, let's say I want to have totals for each of my sales reps. I can change this to sum. It's going to sum via the sales rep, and it's also going to give me an overall total. I can also show my percentage of total without having to do any kind of fancy formulas. I mentioned dynamic expressions. Now I could come in here and I could say forecasted sales. Scroll down here to amount. I could say less than 5,000. Use red. And now we'll see what we have. And you can see we have a few that come up that are under $5,000 and they display in red. These types of things, they look trivial, but they're really not. The percentage of total is something that you can do with the click of a button, no fancy formulas or anything. But you could easily see that sales rep Jason has 49% of Jason's outstanding sales are tied up in this one forecasted sale. Now, I could also see that actually Jason has 61.5%, actually 62.5% when you look at the other that's in red, of outstanding forecasted sales to one client. So something like this from a sales rep level and a management level, tells you I need to be spending some time with them. That's 60% of my pipeline. We need to make sure that they're taken care of when we close those sales. Now that doesn't mean we ignore everybody else, but that allows us to figure out where our time is utilized the best. Now if you look at the groupings, you can see that you only see Jason once, Stonefield once, and you see the totals, $12,000, $102,050, $96,000. Gives you an idea of where everybody stands. And you have your overall totals, $210,000, and then you also have your splits of the 45, 48, and 5%. Now, filtering is easy to do in Stonefield Query. The reason it's easy to do is that it's all in the terms that you're used to seeing. So anytime you're adding fields or creating filters, your customers don't have to figure out, and even you as a partner, you don't have to sit there and think, all right, this field is from the concept table, and it's, concept.xxx.yyyy-abc123. You're actually, it's the field names that you're used to seeing when you're running GoldMine. So you could come in here and you could say, you know what, I want to see my sale date, and I want to see that it's between a certain date range. I click OK. I can preset a date range, or when I run this report, it's going to prompt me for a date range. So I could come in and I could change my dates manually. Most customers want to go ahead and automate their reporting process. So we get asked all the time, if the second of the month is on a Tuesday or something like that, how do I know I'm going to get the report for the previous month? Well, it's easy to do. We have built-in expressions. So you could say first day of previous month to last day of previous month. We don't expect people to know these functions. We're here to help with these types of functions if they're not built in. But the overall goal here really is to automate it. Certain sales reports you may need once a quarter. Your customers may need once a week. They may need once a month. The real truth is, when you need a report, and it's that same report once a week, once a month, once a quarter, once a year, why would you ever want somebody to have to either open GoldMine or open Stonefield Query to get that report when it can be automatically delivered through a scheduled report? Now you could also come in and add in multiple fields, multiple ands and ors. You can get into whatever Boolean you want to. I don't get into that today. It's a little bit more advanced, but you can certainly string things together. You just have to keep in mind of what you learned in math class and making sure that conditions are in parentheses to make sure that you get the data you're looking for. Now you also have exclusions. I'll show you that here in a little bit. To actually write the exclusion, it's the same as when you were writing the filter. Values button. This works on step 2 when you're adding fields, and this step, it shows you all the unique data sets that are in a particular field. That way you don't have to toggle back to GoldMine. An exclusion is for a negative query. I'm sure you guys have been asked to, by your customers, my customer wants to see all the companies that weren't contacted last year, meaning all the companies have no history for whatever reason. Okay, great. We can do that. If your customer says, you know what, I want to know everybody we didn't call last year. I know I emailed people because I do marketing twice a month. I know that we may have sent out some sort of mail merge and mailing. But you know what, I want everybody we didn't call last year. Stonefield Query can easily do that. And then this databases would be lit up when there's multiple GoldMine databases that have been added to Stonefield Query. Now, when it comes to sorting, your initial sort order is always going to be by any group and groupings that you have. Multiple groupings, you have multiple sort orders. Now, I could also come in here, and I could say, you know what, by sales rep, I also want to sort by sale date. And you could also add secondary sorts just with a click of the button. And then when you click on the sort field on the right, you can change it to ascending or descending. Last step, or second to last step in creating your report is your header. Now this you might just want to say forecasted sales pipeline or something like that. You can also alter your footer. Now, so oftentimes you'll have a report with no records. but you want to make sure that the report actually runs and presents itself, you would click that. Otherwise, it's just going to run, but you're not going to get any data. Summary report, when there are groupings on reports, you can run summary reports. Forcing your totals into the group headers, that's something that was asked for, so we added it. The Advanced Layout Designer, which I do not get into today, but that gives you full control of the layout. Changing the orientation, you can force it to portrait or landscape. And then you can also embed charts and graphs into quick reports and crosstab reports. And then finally, it's Stonefield Query's role-based security. I'm just going to go ahead and hit Finish. Role-based security, it's just users and groups. Everybody that logs into Stonefield Query has a username and password. The administrator creates those, creates groups, puts users into groups, and then assigns groups certain capabilities inside of Stonefield Query. Now, moving on to the different other types of reports that you can do. You can do crosstab reports. Now, the process is the same. That's why I'm not going to step through the initial selecting the fields every single time. But I grabbed 4 different fields. You need at least 3. You need at least 1 to go grab the data. You need 1 for your column, and you need at least 1 for the row. You can add your same filters and exclusions. You can change your headers and footers in your template. And same thing when it comes to your users and groups. Now, when we run this particular report, this report actually is broken down via company. Oftentimes we're asked for this report minus the company because your customers will want to see all their sales reps and see, well, how many calls in did Jason have, how many calls out did Jason have, how many next actions. And then oftentimes customers will get curious and they'll break it down via company because they want to actually analyze their data to see, well, you know what, how many American Bank just became a customer, Airtime just became a customer. You know, all these are new customers, and you want to see, well, how many calls in did we take, how many calls out did we make, how many emails did we send, what did we actually do to close the sale for American Bank, and compare that with Airtime Software and Blue Pelican and so on to really see, well, what's being the most effective. One thing that the customer thinks is being the most effective oftentimes is not. And this report will total across as well as down. So if we scroll down to the bottom of this report, you'll see we have our totals at the bottom also per individual rep. Your charts and graphs, professional-looking charts and graphs can be created in a matter of seconds. Here we have our amount and our username. So what I've done is I've changed the username to sales rep, but I actually put the username in the x-axis and the amount in the y-axis. Fields start over here where it says available. When you're conducting a series report, you just drag and drop a field into the series. Now, there's different palettes as well as themes. These are just color themes and palettes that you can pre-choose, or you can add your own backgrounds. You can add your own borders. You can change the labels. You can make the report look a little more 3D by adding a wall into the chart. The legend, one thing I like to point out with the legend is values and versus percentages. That can be changed in a matter of seconds. And then you can change the grid lines as well as the titles in the report. The rest of it is the same as far as filtering and exclusions and then your users and groups. When we run this particular report, you're going to see a quick snapshot. And this report is great for everybody, actually, from the individual sales rep right up to the vice president, right even up to the CEO, or the business owner. And the reason that this report is important, along with like a quick report on history, for instance, and you can have multiple reports. They can be in separate windows if you have dual monitors. They could be tabbed. And the reason that all of these reports are important is that the data that's put into GoldMine is very powerful. And when we're looking at this report right now, what do we immediately see? We see a disparate number of forecasted sales. There's obviously one user that has a lot less forecasted sales than another user. Now, in most typical businesses where you don't have access to the data, and the manager takes a look at this, the manager might say, get your rear end in here, we need to have a talk. Sales rep Red comes walking in, sit down. I notice your forecasted sales are, 80% lower than everybody else. You need to get that number up. The number's not up in 3 months, you're out of here. And everybody, meeting's done. Sales rep walks out. Sales rep's not happy. Sales rep may be thinking they're doing everything possible that they can. Sales rep may be busting their hump, making calls, sending emails, doing what's asked of them, but there's a gap. And these types of reports allow managers to find out what's going on in that gap. Why is Jason and why is the other sales rep, why are they 80% higher than the other sales reps with forecasted sales? What do they do differently? Do they have a different routine? Do they approach the situations differently? Do they do more research before they go out and make a sales call or conduct a demo? Do they ask better questions? What type of questions do they ask? Are they more experienced? Are they less experienced? What's going on? Is there some sort of something going on in somebody's personal life? I mean, oftentimes from this data, you really truly as a manager or a business owner can find out more of what's going on in this situation. And instead of having that uncomfortable conversation, which is get your sales up or your rear end's out the door, it really truly becomes an eye-opening conversation between the business owner, the sales rep. The sales rep has more of a feeling that the business owner is aligned with the sales rep. The business owner wants the sales rep to succeed, wants the overall business to succeed, and instead of having such a negative conversation, it really truly turns into a positive and allows that person to blossom. And that's, ultimately by taking these different types of information and mining that information, businesses can run more smoothly and ultimately increase revenues and profits. Now you're probably wondering, what are some of the other things you can do with Stonefield Query? I'm just going to touch on the labels quick just to show you that we've added some labels from the combined main and secondary contacts. We didn't filter them out. We sort via company. And then we selected one of the Avery label formats. Now naturally, somebody selects a label that's an inch high and tries to put 2 inches of data on it. It's not going to work. But it basically presents itself now naturally. You have that opportunity to take a look at it and realize, well, if I'm doing a mailing, well, this first record's bogus. That's not going to work. Second record is bogus. That's not going to work. You might scroll down, or you might want to filter out everybody that doesn't have a zip code. The zip code is blank. You could do that. That way you're not wasting labels. And again, we don't see the label creep and the text going from one label to the next and those types of issues. So some of the different types of extended capabilities with Stonefield Query. We have what we call the action button. You can find the record in GoldMine. You can also do Google Maps. When you do find record in GoldMine and we hit preview, what you get here is whenever you're doing some sort of data analysis or database cleanup, for instance, this report, give me everybody that doesn't have an email. Great. Now if I have to go to GoldMine and look up every company, that's going to be time consuming. Well, I could just scoot over to GoldMine and there's St. James Medical Center. I could look up their email address. I could come back to my report, JP Hutton. Oops, let me go ahead and click on that. And I'm on JP Hutton. So I mean, basically it gives you that capability to easily find the record in GoldMine. Again, it's something that oftentimes you may think that that's little, but it's big. It saves mouse clicks and it saves time. Google Maps. Instead of making the find record in GoldMine, you say Google Maps. Whenever you say Google Maps, the report's going to run. Report's going to come up. So I could hit Front Range Solutions here. Stonefield Query is going to pop open the default browser. It's going to grab all the address information. It's going to go to Google Maps, pop that in for you, and there you go. You know exactly where you're headed. And you have everything else here. You can go ahead and email this to your phone or whatever you need to do. Now, I had mentioned companies not called last year. This is an example of where we're using a filter, which I have some old data in my demo, but you're saying, okay, give me all of my history that was created between certain date range. And I'm also saying then, under my exclusion, I want to exclude my activity equals C, CC, CI, and CO. So I go ahead and run my report. I click Airtime Software, and what did this do? This actually ran a second report called Company History Report -child, and it passed Airtime Software to this other report. Now I could sit here and I could analyze the data for this particular customer. Again, I could have these in separate windows, which is best for dual monitors, or I could have them in individual windows with tabs up here. And all we did under our contact, on our company rather, we double click on company. All we did is we chose report. We selected our company history report, and we said, you know what, when somebody clicks on company, take that field and pass that to the company filter in the next report. Something that's simple to set up, but it also gives you a great capability in data analysis. This particular report I called Project Tasks that I wanted to show. This was brought to my attention by another partner. As I understand it, there's a lot of partners that have been beating their head against the wall trying to figure out how to get information out of the project tasks in GoldMine, trying to look at things like notes, and look at information when in regards to opportunities and projects. Now, in Stonefield Query, it's broken out as if they're different specific tables, but I could grab a specific opportunity information and then the task information from it. Now, I just grabbed every field from my opportunity tasks. I went in and I created a particular project, and I added tasks. And my understanding was that partners have been beating their heads against the wall trying to find the notes and how to get this information with things like SQL queries in methods that are just extremely difficult to accomplish. And you can see in Stonefield Query, we have all these fields defined, and it really takes a matter of seconds to grab that, to look at that particular information. Let's see. So here's the project that we were looking at, and I went ahead and created all these tasks, and what we were seeing was all of this information per task, literally in a matter of seconds. Now at this point, I mean, I've gone over a lot of information. That's one of the reasons that I do record this webinar. I'll be taking questions here in just a moment. I want to highlight two other things that are important inside of Stonefield Query for this particular webinar. Output to file. So I could say, okay, I want to take this project tasks report and I want to output the file. I can pick one of many different file formats. Now we have the picture formats, your RTF, PDF, Word, quote unquote, normal formats, if you will. And then we have data only formats like your delimited CSV, your DBF, your Excel data only, your tab delimited text file, as well as XML. XML is great. Any customers that you have out there that have somebody that writes, that works on parsing information out of the database, and they may want to take some information out of GoldMine and throw that into another database, Stonefield Query could be used to output that information on a scheduled basis, and then the person who's doing the web development could grab that information and parse that into the database with using XML. I'll just go ahead and select. I'll go ahead and select web page. I hit save, and now I go ahead and hit process. When I go ahead and hit process, that will output that information to file, and it also will go ahead and run the report. Email, you can also, your customers can also email reports. You can also go ahead with reports that have groupings on them. Let me grab our forecasted sales report. Now, reports that have groupings on them, you can either send this via email and it comes as a PDF to one individual person, or you can also copy in certain people, or you can say output and get email address from. So you could add the email address field to the report and then just hide it so it's not viewable, and you could grab that email address right from the report. So these are ways that you can manually output your report, either to preview or to the printer, write the file or write the email. Now, your customers are going to want to automate their reports. They're going to want to do things like creating groups. You can create groups in GoldMine to do targeted marketing campaigns. You can add Stonefield Query reports, or Stonefield Query is the application to GoldMine menus. You could launch Stonefield Query via a button on one of the toolbars. Scheduling reports, extremely easy to do. You just pick when you want to do this report. I'll do weekly at 3 a.m., and I'll call this forecasted sales. I need to have this on Monday morning, so I want it to run on Sunday, and I need this every week. And you can see this process is simple. Your file and your email settings are the same for scheduled. You enter in your Windows login information, not your GoldMine or Stonefield Query login information. Click Finish, and this gets written into Windows as a scheduled task. And the report would fire and run every Sunday at 3 a.m. Monday you come in, it's sitting in your email. Could be sitting in the business owner's email, the manager's email, and all of the sales reps' emails. The last thing I would just like to highlight briefly before opening the floor for questions, formulas. So whenever you want to create a formula, you give it a name. I'm just going to do one that's pretty easy here. Let's call this Commissions March 2010. I want this to say just commissions in the report. I'm going to do forecasted sales. I'll do amount times, I'll just do 0.1. That's easy to see. I want 2 decimal places and the dollar sign. So that easy to create this formula. Now, the first thing you're going to see when I go to forecasted sales is there's the formula. It didn't automatically get added to the report. That means that it is saved in what's called the data dictionary, and it's available for all future reports, not just this one report. We go ahead and add it to the report. Now this behaves like any other number file or number field. I can sum, I can show percentage of totals on it. So now we see that our commissions are 10% of our amount. It really is that easy. You can write complex formulas. You can write easy formulas. It's really up to you what you want to do when it comes to formulas. So what I would say at this point is if you have a question, either go ahead and type it in, go ahead and raise your hand. Go ahead and raise your hand. I can unmute you. More than happy to take the questions and answer them. I don't see any questions coming across yet. Give you one more second here. Go ahead and raise your hand. I'll go ahead and unmute you. Go ahead and type the questions in. More than happy to answer them. Well, at this point, I don't see any questions from anybody. I hope I covered the basics of Stonefield Query. I know it's a lot of information. Again, that's why we went ahead and recorded this today. Be on the lookout for an email next week, midweek usually. And well, it looks like there's a couple questions coming through. Somebody asked, does this work with other products in GoldMine? Absolutely. This works with other products in the Front Range suite. There is Stonefield Query for heat. Excellent solution. I can assure you that you have heat customers out there that hate Crystal reports and would love Stonefield Query. That's the #1 thing that I hear from any user of heat that finds Stonefield Query on the internet. When they take a look at Stonefield Query, they say, wow, I wish I had found Stonefield Query for heat earlier. There's some glaring things in heat that Stonefield Query gets around. We can calculate hours based on the help desk hours, and date fields are date fields. You don't have to do any fancy calculations to turn heat's date fields into a regular date. Those are just two things that the users have complimented us on when it comes to heat. And there are other CRM solutions that we work with. We work with ACT, we work with Sales Logics, we work with Sage CRM. There are other accounting softwares that we work with. We work with O'Lear, AccountMate, ActPack ERP, ActPack Pro, Timberline, Mass 90, Mass 200. May have missed one here and there. And we also have our software development kit. Keep that in the back of your minds as partners. GoldMine is only one solution that your customers have. Now, we've customized Stonefield Query for GoldMine. You could, with the SDK, add additional tables from another database like we did with QuoteWorks into Stonefield Query, or you could create a whole new application. And it doesn't have to be branded Stonefield Query. When you're using the SDK to create your own solution for a customer, you can call it whatever you want. Another question is there also a euro sign next to the dollar? Certainly you can get the euro sign in there. That's something I will look into and follow up on to see what exactly you need to do to change that. And I'll look into that to see if that's something that gets pulled from the Windows regional settings also. Another question, good to see the questions flowing in. Keep them coming. Is there an NFR for dealers? Absolutely. Without having the software, you're not playing around with it, you're not using it. We don't necessarily expect you to become the overall expert on Stonefield Query. We'll go ahead and get you the NFR. Part of the support that I provide is pre-sales support. Our sales team is there. Our support team is there. And I'm also there for demo support. So don't hesitate to give me a call to review something that your customer is interested in. Somebody asked, does it work with QuickBooks? At this particular point, we do not have a customized version, Stonefield Query for QuickBooks. However, that would be a great place for the SDK. You might want to build something, just for your customer base. Maybe they have some specific needs, or there may be a couple of tables in QuickBooks or something that you would like to get at and make reportable. The SDK is the best place to go. Whenever we create a report in Stonefield Query and we give the report a name, when we click this drop-down, where you see QuoteWorks document headers and you see all the fields in the document headers, anybody that resells QuoteWorks, as you know, that's a whole different application and a whole different database. We've just put that into the data dictionary using the SDK. So, I mean, sky is the limit when it comes to reporting with the Stonefield Query. Are there any other questions? Keep them coming. Those are excellent questions. More than happy. I'll keep the floor open here for just another moment. Raise your hand if you want. I'll go ahead and unmute you, and you can ask the question. I don't see any other questions coming in at this particular point. In the event 10 minutes later after this is over, you say, hey, I've got a question, zip me an email. I'd be more than happy to answer the questions, pick up the phone, and give me a call. I'm available and here and happy to answer questions. It looks like one last question came in. It says, what's the next step to become a dealer? I'll be following up with each and every individual that signed up and attended today. Naturally, the attendees first. In the meantime, feel free to zip me an email, and I can get the dealer information out quickly to you and get the NFR license out to you, too. We do not charge a fee to become a dealer. Like I said, we give you the NFR for free, and we want to provide the support and make sure that your customers are satisfied. So again, feel like one last call for questions here. Questions have been excellent today. I don't see any other questions coming through. What I'm going to do is go ahead and stop the webinar. I want to thank everybody for taking time out of your valuable schedules today. Wish you a wonderful weekend, and I will be in touch. Have a great weekend. Bye now.